galvanizing moment. Do you feel it? Is there an incredible opportunity here or what? That's how I like to look at it. I want to introduce a good friend and brother of mine, Jon Young, who's out here from California. I met Jon many, many years ago in the pursuit of what it means to be a human being, what it means to be connected with nature in my ancestry, myself, and others. And I founded, with other people, the Vermont Wilderness School in Brattleboro. My name is Mark Morgan, I didn't introduce myself before. And later on, the Institute for Natural Learning, which this program is sponsoring. And Jon is founder of the Eat Shields, as well as Owlink Media in California. And it's a pleasure to have you here. Glad you're right safe.
I was always wondering what the priest felt like. Confused. Now I know. Thanks for coming, and thinking about this night for days now, thinking about it last night on the red eye on the airplane, and thinking about what was I going to say to all of you here about this galvanizing moment. You know, we're facing some interesting times. Anybody feeling that way? Just a show of hands. Okay, so I'm not alone. Good. We have something in common right off the bat. Originally, I was born in New Jersey, so I'm originally from the East, and remember Walker, yes, New Jersey. I remember the winter. Yeah, I saw snow today, and I remembered what snow looked like. I've been living near Santa Cruz for a little while now, and we do get a little snow at 2,000 feet, but really it's just to entertain us, I think. So I was just looking around at this landscape, and I'm thinking about the history of this land, and I'm thinking about the history of our world a little bit, and thinking about what brings us to this moment. And somebody who lives up in New York State, someone who's been an advisor and a teacher to both Mark and myself, and probably a lot of people in this room, Mike McDonald from the Tree of Peace Society, he told us, you know, you don't really know who you are or where you're going until you know where you really have come from. And when I first heard those guys speak to me, I thought I did know where I was coming from, but I guess what he was talking about was the whole part of history that's been hidden from our view. There's a lot of history that we just don't know. There's a lot of history that we as Americans take for granted as American history, but maybe it isn't really the whole story. And from the Native perspective, there's a different history. So I think about the work of Richard Louv. You know Richard Louv's name? Anybody in the room here? And when I'm on an airplane nowadays, I'm really grateful to Richard Louv for one thing in particular, and that is that now, when I'm on the airplane, I can just turn to the person when they ask me what I do, and I can say, have you heard of Richard Louv? And they say, no. I say, have you heard of nature deficit disorder? Oh yeah, I've heard of nature. Who's heard of nature deficit disorder? More hands always come up for nature deficit disorder, okay. And then I say, well, Richard Louv's the guy for information in the future. When someone asks you about Richard Louv, that's the guy with nature deficit disorder, the book about it. Oh, right, I think I saw him on Oprah. So that's usually what I hear back. I'm like, great, we're going someplace now. And the conversation is about to end. I can stop right here. I can say, well, actually, I do work to help people overcome nature deficit disorder. Oh, that's very interesting. What do you do? And the story. I don't have to go anywhere else. I used to try to explain what I did for about 45 minutes, and then just people's eyes would glaze over. And yeah, my favorite one is my relatives. Jonathan, why would anyone want to do that? You know? You're such a nice boy. Your mom is worried about you. You have to make a living someday. You know? So that was my initiation into the modern world. You know, what does it mean to live fully in two worlds? The world of nature and the world of people. And I just go back and reflect on that journey that I've been on, and suddenly, you know, Richard Louv writes that book, and then by some miracle, he decides to write the foreword to the book that we wrote about coyote mentoring and connecting people to nature through the old traditions. And he went so far as to say, you know, for the last so many generations, we've been losing our connection to nature, and for 25 years, these guys have been doing nothing but working on nature connections, so they're the ones who understand. Well, I appreciate that, but I'm not quite sure what to tell people. And after 25 years of doing the nature connection work, I realized that it's not as easy as it seems, you know. And Richard Louv says the same thing. He says, you know, 2 generations of loss of nature connection in our culture, and a very media-oriented culture, modern young people are so very disconnected. And now there's all these interesting, what do we call them, conditions that are emerging as a result, you know? And maybe you've heard that something called information sickness. Have you heard of information sickness? Information sickness has similar symptoms to post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's starting to show up more and more in our society. It's starting to rise. You know, think about that, information sickness. Getting poisoned from information. And I think about some of the initiatives that I've seen, you know, the No Child Left Behind, which in talking to a lot of teachers who are really frustrated by that, because the measure of that particular standard says they have to pass the test, or our grade as a school goes down. You know, we get judged harshly by these federal standards, and that's not good for our district. That's not good for our tax base. It will be punished more or less for that. You know, so we got to get these kids to pass the test. And so, when people explain to me what that means to them in frustration is that they have to kind of open up a person's skull, stuff it full of information, and close it really fast before it all leaks back out again, and then get them to the test so they can regurgitate into the blank spaces, and hopefully enough of the information will stick that they'll get a good grade. And that's a far cry from what we call nature connection. And it's really, really different. And I've kind of boiled it down to this level here, you know. We have something called nature deficit disorder, which you won't be able to get health insurance to cover. But you will actually, for some of the disorders within that collection called nature deficit disorder, you will get health coverage for those. You will actually be able to get medication for some of these things. And medication is the response, you realize. That's the mainstream response to this. So, why is that important? Nature connection, why is that important? What does it matter, really? Well, I have an occupational therapist that I work with in California that Mark and I will be working with on a regular basis. And she told me, she kind of shocked me. I said to her, you know, we're looking at this nature deficit disorder, and I'm wondering, you know, you're an occupational therapist, what do you actually do? She said, well, I work in elementary schools. And I don't know about you, but I'm a little behind the times. I didn't know that occupational therapists were needed in elementary school. I went to elementary school, and I didn't have an occupational therapist. And I didn't know elementary school was an occupation. Right? But there's this phenomenon going on. So I said to her innocently, and I did not expect her answer, but I had to call Mark Maury and share with him right away because it was so shocking and profound to me. Mark and I were talking about the fact that, okay, nature disconnection is real. We know that. We've been working on that for so many years of our lives, so we're really aware of that when we've been working on it. Okay, so we feel good about what we can do about that. But the one that's bothering us more is the people disconnection disorder, you know?